Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Open Concept Podcast, where we are breaking down unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. Our guest today, Vince Perri, just a stone's throw away, as we were discussing earlier, from Vancouver all the way to Atlanta. Welcome, my friend.
Not Atlanta, Tampa.
Tampa.
That's all right.
My man. Sorry.
Close enough.
Sorry. We're maybe we'll edit that out.
I probably would have said, if I was doing the show, I probably would have said something like Montreal, because Vancouver, Montreal to me are like the same place anyway. So don't cut it out. It is what it is.
Yeah, no, of course not. Anyways, hey man, thank you so much for being here. Founder of Elite Resolutions and the founder of Beyond the Claim podcast. Super excited to have you here on board with us today to have a chat, man.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited.
Yeah, we were talking offline. We hammered out a few push-ups as well, so we're pumped, ready to go. I think I did 10. I think you did a few more than me, so we're ready to go. Yeah, I've been watching your content. Let me ask you. So claims adjusting, you've been doing that for a long time, but you have had a lot of stuff out on YouTube and a lot of stuff out on Instagram and following your social media around and your story. Would love to get a bit of a background there, because you have a lot of great information, financial information, strategic exiting information for businesses, for those that are looking to exit. You talk a lot about the wealth gap as well. I've seen a lot of tidbits on that, and I wanted to just get some feedback from you and introduce yourself to the listeners that don't know who you are, and hear a little bit about your story before we get into it.
Do we have enough time?
Man, we have all the time for you.
So 16 years I've been a public insurance adjuster. For those of you who don't know what a public adjuster is, basically when you file an insurance claim, if you're a homeowner and you have a water pipe burst or a hurricane or a fire or vandalism or whatever the heck happens in your home, typically you call the insurance company, you file an insurance claim, insurance adjuster goes out, they put together an estimate of damages and they give it to you. You're in construction, so if you know anything about this, 9.9 times out of 10, they underpay the crap out of you. So the insurance adjuster that goes out to your house, although they are called an independent adjuster, they're actually just a hired gun from the insurance company. They have contracts with the insurance company, and that's how they get their work. So they are representing the insurance company. The third kind of there's a company adjuster that works like for a State Farm. There's the independent adjusters that's hired by the insurance company to go be the eyes and ears and inspect the loss. But then there's the third kind, which is what I am, is a public adjuster. Public adjuster is licensed and represents only the policyholder. You have the right to hire your own adjuster. Do you have to? Are you required to? By no means. But as a licensed adjuster, experienced adjuster, I understand policy, expert in policy. I know how to write estimates. I know how to determine coverage, see what's damaged, see what's not damaged. And basically what I do is the same thing that the insurance adjuster does, but on behalf of the policyholder. So if for some reason the tile floor is damaged, the insurance adjuster will go up there and he'll just write like a tile damage repair. When you know, Brandon, as a contractor, you can't match tile. If you replace one tile or two tiles, it's going to be an eyesore. You have to replace the continuous flooring. That's just a small example of what I do amongst actually proving coverage when they're trying to tell you that it's not covered. So that's what I've been doing for 16 years. And basically, it's gone really well. I still have my public adjusting firm. But 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago, I was actually thinking of getting out just because 10, 11 years in the industry, I was, we didn't have a kid at the time. I had no children, and my wife and I were really into traveling, and we were thinking about getting into traveling, and we had done 4 weeks in Thailand, then we did 3 months in Southeast Asia, and we were about to go on a 6-month trip across South America, and I started a YouTube channel, a travel channel with my wife, and I really got into photography and videography and was really, really getting into it. So 2017 comes and we set out on this 6-month trip. After a month and a half, I told my wife before we left, I said, the only thing that could bring us back is a hurricane, because that's big business.
Man, you said that out loud?
Yeah, but I wanted the hurricane. I wanted the hurricane. That's great for business.
It's good for business. Yeah, my friends down in Colorado, they're always, they're that are in the insurance business. They're always praying for those big hailstorms, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the Hurricane Irma comes in 2017. Cut our trips short for a month and a half, and we went down. I started working all these claims, doing really well. But then even then, come early 2018, I was like, what can I do, right? What can I do to get some residual income? Because just waiting on the claim to get paid and just that whole process, I was kind of just getting a little burnt out by it. I'm on a plane one day and, I pick a book that I wanted to start, and it was Gary V, Crushing It. And I start reading it, and Gary V talks about give it all away, social media, give all the goods away. And I was trying to think of ways that I can monetize the travel. For some reason, that's where my head was at. Should I start a photography course, write a photography book? And then in my head, I'm like, I don't know shit about photography. All I know is the little bit I've learned and the few travels and the little YouTube channel that I started. And then I go, I know everything there is to know about the public adjusting industry, about insurance claims, about damage and water damage and continuous floor and policies. I'm like, why don't I just start a YouTube channel about that? So when I got back from my trip, I literally just sort of laid it all out. I had done a lot of editing and videography and stuff like that, and I realized that I hated the editing process. I just liked the result. So I told myself, all right, I'm going to do this just once a week. Every Wednesday, I'm going to have a show, and I'm going to do it raw. I'm not going to do a bunch of cuts and transition. All I'm going to do is titles to make my life easier, and I'm going to do once a week, so I have a whole week to actually edit it, and it'll be a simple edit because it'll be a 10 to 20 minute show, just a couple titles, and let it run. And within about 2 months, I realized that I was getting messages from people I didn't know, and I could just tell it was becoming a thing. And then I also realized, buy back our time, I shouldn't be all up in the posting and the editing and stuff like that. So I hired my first admin to basically help me with the social media posts, help me post it on YouTube. His little brother actually happened to be an editor. He started helping me with the editing. And man, Brandon, long story short, it just turned into a thing, and then it turned into a whole new company because now I was consulting, and I had courses, and I had this book down here, and I had 3 or 4 of those that sell online and do pretty well, and it just turned into a whole other company, and that was a commercial claims advocate. And now we're here today where I guess I kind of got that whole thing again where I'm not crazy about the public adjusting industry. I feel 16 years ago, Brandon would have a loss. He'd call me. I'd go in, write up an estimate. I always get along with the other side. We go back and forth. We negotiate, settle the claim, on to the next one. Now, Brandon has a claim, and they find out that Brandon has a public adjuster, and they just fight me tooth and nail. There's also been a lot of law changes. There's been a lot of policy changes. There's a lot more limitations than there used to be. There's a lot more exclusions than there used to be. And just the whole landscape of the industry has really changed, where it's become very difficult, where I haven't seen anything, I haven't heard any good news in probably over 6 or 7 years. And I don't see it getting better. I don't see potential in the industry anymore. So I've had to make the very, very difficult decision, and I don't know if you were on any of those calls, but I even asked, I got a question in once with Dan where I was just like, what do you do? And Dan was just like, if you're the visionary, you're the entrepreneur, and you're the visionary, and if you have already people that you're leading, they're looking to you to see into the future and see what's coming. And if you see what you think you see, then you need to make a move. because like I was telling my wife, I don't want to like continue just to go all in and scale this company and do all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, you know, they get rid of our industry or they make it so restrictive that it's almost impossible, because that's kind of where we're at now. I don't want to be sitting back saying, man, you know, a year ago or 3 years ago, I thought this was going to happen and look where we're at now. So I decided to make a shift basically now where, because I've been an entrepreneur now for 16 years, I have run a tennis academy, a public adjusting firm, a virtual product company, that I've learned so much, and reading all these books and being coached by Dan and being coached by Dan Sullivan as well, a strategic coach, and read all these books. And I love, and I'm so passionate about business and entrepreneurship. Like, it's really, really what I love. I just was thinking about acquiring a business. I was going to partner up with somebody, and I kept talking to these business brokers, who basically what they do is, if Brandon wants to sell his business to Vince, there's a middle person who brokers the deal. The broker finds all the buyers and basically negotiates the deal and helps gather all the information. And then from the brokering, I'm a broker now. I work for an accounting firm, and what we decided is we're gonna partner up, start a brokerage. But also I like the exit planning too, where it's good business strategy. And Dan talks about it all the time, where you should always be thinking with the exit in mind. Have your systems and processes ready to go. Have recurring revenue, because that's what buyers like to see. Have a productized service where you have a product that you're selling, so you could actually have salespeople to sell that product. Like, all of these things I'm so passionate about, and that has led to not only brokering the deal, but I'm also trying to help business owners understand the importance of exit now, in a way. Like, exit should be present tense, and really helping their company scale to really build a machine that could be transferable if and when that time comes. That was a long story long.
No, that was great. I think so much for sharing, because it is a really unique path, right? You're invested in something for over 15 years, and you nailed it on the head when you said you need to, if you have people that are working for you, working with you, then they need to have some clarity as to where the business is going. So they're looking at you as the owner, as the CEO, to read the play. Read that play, make that call, bring that information back to the company and say, this is where we're going. Do you trust me or do you not? And that's an important thing, because like you said, if your senses are telling you that in the industry that you were in is looking a little iffy in the future, man, you got people that you have to worry about, and they need to know that too, because they may not have all the same information that you do.
And it's a beautiful thing, because there's actually a training in the portal that he goes through, a whole training of either changing paths on a product line or changing paths on a business entirely. And that was like music to my ears. And one of the things he recommends, and the first thing I did, is you got to tell your people. If you've got already in your company good people, you need to tell them, because you want to bring them over. And it's the first thing that I did. Probably, what are we in now? We're in July, so I think probably like around February. I have 2 girls, like 2 rock stars. And I literally had a meeting with only the 2 of them. I said, here's what I see. You guys may not know this, because they don't really know, right? That's the funny thing too, is it's like they know checks are coming in and stuff like that. But I'm like, look, this is what I see. Okay, I've been in this for 16 years. I see where this is. It's only gotten worse in the 16 years. Like, it hasn't gotten better. I see where this is going, and this is my plan. I'm going to start going all into this. So if you see on social media because that's the other thing too. I also had a meeting with all of my adjusters, which are like my salespeople, and they're all working for me because of finding me on social media. So I had to have a meeting with them too, because what I didn't want is for me to see me talking about exit planning and business brokering and selling your business when they're just like, okay, what's going on here? You know, because all my content, you could go on the YouTube show, like just anything from before this year, and it's all about insurance claims. So I had a meeting with them. That actually felt really good. They were fully on board, fully supportive, and they really appreciated, because I've been doing this so long and I see what's happening. They really appreciated me just telling them, like, this is what I see. I'm not telling you guys to stop doing this, because they're all adjusters working for me. I'm not telling you guys to stop doing this. I'm just telling you guys what I see and why I'm making a move. You guys make the decision, but I will support you in whatever decision. I'm not closing the company, because it's kind of a well-oiled machine at this point. Like, it does what it does. Doesn't really need me much. And I actually kicked up their percentage so they could get more, because I wasn't going to be doing as much to help them. And I said, you guys do what you do. I'll support you in any way. So I told them that. And then the girls, I've already brought one over. She's my executive assistant now. And I already told the other one, I said, once this starts going and we start getting a ton of leads in and we have to do reports and all this, I'm going to need operations, and that's where you're going to come in. So everybody's on the same page.
Awesome. I want to talk to you. You talk a lot about exiting business. Mm-hmm. What do people get wrong when they're looking at selling their business? What do people, if they're thinking, hey, I imagine that people really underestimate how difficult it is to sell a business, or to have somebody else value their business the way that they value it. Because a lot of people, I imagine everybody, because like a lot of people, they run the business, they've been doing it a long time, they're making good money doing it, and they think, okay, well, somebody's going to pay me 12x for this business because that's what I see it valued at. Right. But I imagine there's probably some misalignment there.
Overvalue. Everyone overvalues their business. Everyone. They don't look at it from the buyer's perspective. They're always looking at it from the seller's perspective. They're looking at it from the business owner's perspective, which is a thing of beauty, right? Yeah, nothing's perfect. It could always get a little bit better, but they think it's just a beauty. And then they're always thinking about revenue too, where they think that revenue is where it's at. So if they're making a ton, especially, everybody makes the mistake of always looking at the gross revenue, when as much as I do that. What is it? Vanity? That's like for vanity, right? Not for
revenue for vanity, profit for sanity.
Sanity, right. So everyone's always looking at that nice big gross number, and then they go to the bottom and they're only making 5% profit, right? Oh, but it pays me a $500,000 salary. That's great, but they don't care about that. Now, if you're paying yourself $500,000 salary, that is an add back that we could put to the value, so that's good. But yeah, everybody overvalues their business, and then there's really 4 key things that actually give you the bigger multiple, and it's worth about 80%. So you've got the actual dollar amount, which is your EBITDA, right? So you're taking the value, you're taking your net profit, and then you're adding back your salary, discretionary earnings, and just some other things, taxes, interest and stuff. Then you have to put a multiple to it. Now, it depends on the industry. Is what I do is I go and I take a deep dive. I do research on the industry. What is the range of multiple, ROM? So let's say construction, you're usually looking at around a 3x to about a 7x, right? So 3x to 7x. So if you are on the low end, right, you're only going to get a 3x. But what we call best in class, if you've got these 4 things that I'm about to mention, you could take your 3x now into a 7x, and that's a lot more money. You have to have strong human capital. That means your employees have to be all on the same page. Everybody's good culture. Everybody's sort of rowing in this. Everybody loves their job. Maybe there's like some kind of profit share or some kind of good bonus structure. Like, they got to be happy. That's your human capital.
Let me ask you, because I love these 4 things, but I want to ask you some questions as they come up.
No problem.
Why is that important? Why is somebody that's coming in to take over the business, why is it important to them that there's already a strong company culture in place?
Yeah, well, I mean, because you're coming in as a new, these owners of these businesses have to understand that if they're going to sell, they're selling it to, there's a lot of different exit options too, Brandon. I'm looking at it, let's just say, like, if I wanted to buy your business, obviously I want to make sure that when I come in there, they're not going to look at me like I'm some crazy person, that everybody really enjoys their job and is really like moving and flowing, and that they already expected this to come because Brandon was getting old or Brandon had talked about it. One thing that I always stress with owners, like, when we start working together, like, everyone needs to be on the same page. It's not because you want to leave them in the dust. It's just because maximizing the company's value is going to maximize their value, and it's going to make it transferable so that, let's say, a private equity company comes in, they're just going to take that company and go 3x with it, which is great for you too. Like, exiting doesn't have to be looked at. The word exit, it's got a really negative connotation where it's just like, oh, I'm just basically getting rid of all of you. No, if everyone's on the same page, it's got good culture, that transfers very, very well. So that if I'm coming in now, I'm going to already be walking into a good company culture. Everybody understands their roles and responsibilities. All these bonus structures are all laid out. Everyone's happy. very transferable. The word I use a lot is transferable. Your human capital has to be transferable, and then that leads me to the structural capital. Your systems, your processes, SOPs, like your operations manual, your playbook. Like everyone knows, if I give you this, or if you give this to me because I'm buying your business, like I should be able to look at your systems and operations and processes and just know exactly how to run your business without me knowing anything about your business. Super important. Customer capital. So your customer base, loyal customers, diversified customers. Brandon, if 25% of your revenue comes from one customer, that's a problem. If 50% of your revenue comes from one customer, that's a problem. You want to be less than 5% for one customer.
Is that across the board rule of thumb, or is it sort of industry related?
Yeah, no, it's not industry related. I would just say you want to be just the less you're leaning on one customer, the better. Yeah, 25% is not very good. But I don't know. Maybe that's typical in your industry or not. But you definitely want.
I wouldn't say it is typical, and I understand exactly what you're saying. Right? You have one big contract, or maybe it's one big government contract that's taking up 25% of your revenue. All of a sudden, they have a change in direction as to where they want to go. You lose that. You lose that cash. You lose that revenue.
It's a big red flag. It's a big red flag. Then the last one is your, and then in regards to recurring revenue, that's a big one. The value drivers, I'll get to the fourth one. The 3 value drivers, what I call value drivers is owner dependency, recurring revenue or a subscription model, and then some kind of niche, even in your industry. If you have any just kind of niche within the niche, that's huge. And then your last capital is going to be your social capital. So that's your social capital is really your reputation in the community, and how people see your company, how your website looks, how your Google reviews and stuff look, just how you look to the community, whether that community is your local community or nationwide community, whatever that community is. How does it look? How does your brand come off? And you get all those things right, and we score those, by the way. Like there's a scoring rating that I learned becoming an exit planning advisor. There's an actual scoring system that we literally relate it to the exact multiple. So I score your social, customer, human capital. I score all 4 of them, and that actually determines your multiple.
I'd love to. Can we dive into that a little bit more as to how you might score that?
It's questions, right?
Questions, yeah.
1 to 6. So I ask questions, and you rate yourself. You rate yourself on what you feel. You have to be honest with yourself. And we could talk to somebody else in the management team or your leadership team or whatever it is, just to see how honest you were with yourself. And based on that, we get a total number. So based on your human capital, there's just a laundry list of questions. At the end, we just average it out. Is it 3, 4, 5, or 6? And then we take the 4, we average that out, and then that gives you your range of multiples. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If your range of multiple is say 3 to 7, okay, I'm going to put that 3x under the 3, right? Yeah. And then I'm going to go up by 2 until you're 6. If you score 6, that means you are perfect. That's going to be your highest multiple, right? And then based on what you get in all the capital, all the structures and stuff like that, that's where I range you in the multiple. Did that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went down. It was interesting. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I don't know if I've brought this up on the podcast, but I went down, did a couple of days at acquisition.com at a conference with Alex and Layla Hormozi down there. And it was really interesting to see how they scored companies that they were looking at moving into their portfolio companies, or how they were looking at acquiring businesses as well. And it was very, very similar to what you're talking about, right? They look at, it's got to be a couple hundred businesses a month that they, take to the next steps to actually start valuing, that they don't write off this side of their desk and say, forget it. But assuming it makes it through that first filter, then they do have a scoring process that they use. And they talk about value adders and value retractors as well. I'd be curious to see, you mentioned value adders. I'd like to hear a bit more on that. Like, what would be a really good couple of value adders, and what's going to really start retracting that. I had you mentioned social proof, right? So nobody wants to really buy a company if the community looks at this company as a really shitty company, or they've done
Right.
some terrible things, because that's going to be a really difficult reputation to
Yep.
probably turn around. And you mentioned internal culture, right? If the culture there, if people don't really want to be there, chances are when the owner leaves, they're probably just there because they've gotten away with operating a certain way for that owner, but they're not going to be able to operate that way with the new owner because it doesn't make sense. So they're probably going to end up leaving. So that's a difficult thing, and those can be value subtractors or value retractors, right? So what would you say would be a few of the key things that are really tangible if somebody was looking to exit a company, or they were considering exiting their company, that they should be focusing on first? And then what's kind of like the last thing that they probably need to get in place before they go to somebody like you and say, look, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to sell my business. I'm looking to get as much money as I possibly can. Where would you tell them to sort of start and sequence things and focus on if they were considering going down that path?
So I originally wanted to answer that question by telling you owner dependency. By
Okay.
far, it's one of the most important things that a buyer looks at, because they're not looking to buy a job. Most people, and even private equity firms, obviously, they're not trying to buy something that they're going to be working in full time. Like, no, that's not why you really buy a business. But to answer your question, for the business owner, the first thing that we do, Brandon, is we mitigate risk. We call it de-risking. So we take the deep dive into your company. We find out what's going on, whatever issues that they're going on. And what I'm trying to focus on, especially like those first 3 months, is I'm really trying to find ways to de-risk stuff. So look at your your buy-sell agreement. If you have a partner or something like that, let's revisit that. Let's take a look at that. Let's make sure it's pretty iron tight, and that you're safe and your partner's safe and everybody's just safe. Another way that we de-risk is honestly SOPs, like super easy way that you could just start de-risking to making sure that everything's sort of like running in place in the way it's supposed to be. And then maybe another way, if you have like a really good employee, like making sure that she's going to stay and everything's going to, whatever we can do to sort of, instead of going all into really accelerating value, we usually do that like in phase 2. The first thing that we typically do is, instead of accelerating value, let's de-risk, because actually what de-risking does, one of the most important things to increasing the value of your company is low risk. The more risk your company actually has, the lower your value goes. The less risk that your company has, the safe spaces, just the safety net of it all, the higher your valuation is. So that's what we always start with. It's also much easier, especially in the beginning, as you start this sort of value accelerating process, is to actually, it's just an easier way to, okay, let's see what you do have now, and let's just make it like really, really tight. Let's make sure those contracts, customer contracts are tight. Let's make sure those systems and processes are tight. Let's make sure whatever buy-sell agreements, whatever contracts you have with your partners or whatever, let's make sure all that stuff's tight now, and then we could think about really accelerating revenue and accelerating value.
I think that's just good business in business 101, right? I think that a lot of people get lost in trying to constantly make more sales, which is obviously that's sort of the oxygen of the business, but being able to deliver on that is kind of messy. And a business that is going to be worth a lot to sell is probably pretty fun to run, right? So having that idea that, all right, before we go and jump too far ahead and start growing out of control, let's just really tighten out our operation, even if the idea isn't selling, just making sure that before we hit the accelerator, let's just make sure that this is tight, whether it's going to be with our sales team, our production team, our finance team, the reporting's good, the operations are good, communication with our clients is dialed, and everybody knows exactly what they need to do in sort of any given circumstance.
Yeah, one of the paradigm shifts that I'm trying to really nail and really bring home to people, especially the audience now with YouTube, is exit strategy equals good business strategy. It's not so much about selling your business. Like your exit strategy is in its core just an amazing, like if you have good human capital, good structural capital, good social capital, and good customer capital, you have recurring revenue, you're not owner dependent, you're in a niche, like come on, that's a great business whether you want to sell it or not.
Yeah, no, 100%. One of the other things when you talk about de-risking
Mm-hmm.
that came up at the seminar that I was down at, because I'm wildly interested in this stuff, was key man risk. That was a term that I had never heard before. Had gone down there, and it became pretty clear that that was probably the case for a lot of people. Usually, if it's going to be the founder or a COO, if that single person left the company, then the operation would fall apart.
That's where your systems and processes come into place.
Yeah, exactly. But making sure, like, if you don't have somebody that's in place to hold the standard and hold the accountability and make sure that all of these things are being followed, and people, if you're working at McDonald's, they know how to make fries, but if they don't have somebody there that's making sure that they're monitoring and that's going out consistently, and that the salt is the right amount, and the deep fryer goes down, and you push the button and they make a mistake, and train them and train them and train them, you can show them what to do, but holding them accountable, training on them consistently, making sure that they're doing the right thing, is, if you don't have that person in place, then the systems are only as good as the people operating them. And I use a McDonald's reference because I was fired from McDonald's. It was my first job. I was hired on at 14, and I never made it past really the fry station. So I use that that metaphor lightly, but that was certainly my experience.
Strong leadership, strong management is crucial. Yeah, I mean it's so important, which comes down to good culture and all of that stuff. That's what a buyer's looking for. That's what private equity is obviously looking for. I've learned a lot recently. Full disclosure, I've been doing this just since the beginning of the year. So like I'm still like really learning a lot as well. It's really, really fascinating. Private equity is like so frowned upon, where like there's sharks and this and that. But let me tell you something, man. If you're a business owner, the private equity route is a very interesting route. And I'm sorry I'm kind of getting off track, but it just made me think about it with strong management and stuff like that. Where if you really want to get two bites at the apple, right? So let's say, Brandon, you're kind of tired a little bit. You still wouldn't mind scaling. You get approached by a private equity company that can take over what's called a major, it's called like a major recapitalization, right? So they're taking over, let's say, the majority of the company, and you're still staying on as a CEO. You're just taking, you just liquidated 51% of your company, like in your pocket. Sure, did you lose majority control? Yes, but you've been working in the business for so long, there's nobody better to run that company than you anyway. You just took on a partner, private equity company, with lots of investors, lots of money, that no business, quite frankly, better than pretty much anybody else does, that you have now an opportunity to, again, number one, you just liquidated. Number two, you're staying on, and they're going to increase the value of that company now from that 3x multiple to potentially that 7x multiple, so that in 3 to 7 years, that's usually their time frame, you could exit again. And that 49% is actually worth, from 3x to 7x more than what that 51% was worth. And you get two bites at the apple.
There's a book. The author is Adam Coffey, and I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but he's written a handful of books, and one he wrote was called the Private Equity Playbook. And in that book, he had mentioned he's talking about exactly what you're talking about, but I think he had said he had sold the same company. I think he had said 7 times. Was it?
Holy crap!
I think that like his record was 7 times, seven bites of the apple, if you will. But
awesome.
But that's just kind of like you bring on private equity, you grow it exponentially, and then you're going to have more interest in it because the value is that much higher. So you keep selling it, and it sounds easy to do, but I think it's a pretty complicated thing. I would say for 99.9% of the world to really get right at that level.
Yeah, it's probably it is very complicated. I actually read a book called What I Learned When I Sold to Private Equity, and that's how I got the idea to become a certified exit planning advisor. Um, I'd have to look up his name, but he sold his company, I think it was 3 times. And he said it was complicated. He didn't know anything about it either. He thought private equity was bad, and he had to learn a lot throughout the process. He had an exit advisor as well, and it ended up being like a great thing. I mean, I follow him on social media. He's got quite the house, actually
Yeah.
here in Orlando too. So it was good for him.
I think it's also good, almost every year, and I don't think many businesses are doing this, but look at you can look at your P&L sheet at, your financial statements at the end of the year and say, okay, we've made this much money, but to actually go through a process every year and say, okay, well, how much is the company worth? How much have we really tightened up our systems? If you go through that process every single year and say, okay, maybe it's going to take 3 to 7 years or whatever that's going to be. This is the goal, but reevaluate every, 12 months. Are we on track? What do our Google reviews look like? What is our customer success score? What does that look like? And you really compare that to last year. I guarantee you the vast majority of businesses are not doing that year over year.
We do it every 90 days.
Every 90 days.
Yeah. So we'll get the valuation of the company. This is what I do for my clients. We'll get the valuation of the company. We figure out, what are we going to do for the next 90 days based on, I also go into the personal stuff as well. So like if I did this with you per se, I'd also go into like, what's your plan after exit? What is it that you want to do? How much money do you need? Your wealth goal, stuff like that. But as far as the business is concerned, what are in the next 90 days? What are some of the de-risking things that we have to do? What are some of the value accelerator things that we have to do so that we can increase the multiple? And we basically, after 90 days, I have been taught to I have to ask the question: are you ready to exit, or do you want to keep growing? And we go every 90 days. Are you ready to exit, or do you want to keep growing? I get what you're saying. No, every year is probably enough, especially in the beginning. If your horizon is still 5 or 10 years out, then yeah, maybe every 90 days is a little much. But definitely, you should have your company have a good valuation done. Not a certified valuation. That's another certification. They have certified valuation analysts. You don't need a certified valuation, but you want to know the difference between your tax number and your real number. Your tax number, excuse my French, is bullshit. Because I don't know, you live in Canada, so I don't know what the rules are, but at the end of the year, you're going to do whatever you can to save on taxes.
There's a lot of ways to defer. Defer revenue.
Your tax number is bullshit. Your gross number is bullshit. What is really counts is your real number. Like I said, your real number is your net profit, and then you take away the taxes and the interest and the stuff and any kind of other discretionary expense. That's another thing, is we use our company to go out to dinners, to travel, to pay off our car, which is not illegal, but it's not what a new owner or a buyer is going to account for. So you cannot account for that stuff.
Let me ask you, how much, talking about reading the play, right? How much do you see AI either benefiting or disrupting what we're talking about right now? And I ask you because I had to talk to a number of realtor friends of mine about AI in the real estate industry, and the varying opinions, right? Some are saying, you know what, I'm not all that concerned about it. It's going to really add a lot of value to the realtors that are out there that are doing their thing. And I talked to others, and they're saying, you know what, we are terrified. Like the only difference really between having zero realtors, or we're talking about different spaces, but especially in like the condo world, for example, the difference between having the requirement of having a realtor, a human being, and just being all right with an AI, an automated program that's lining up, pre-vetted sellers and pre-vetted buyers, and eliminating that person is compliance, right? So is the idea that we have a set agreement that it requires a person to sign off and take and work with an agency and work with a certified agent. But as soon as you eliminate that compliance, then all of a sudden it's open season. Like it's wide open for disruption. And I'm curious because there's, I don't know what AI looks like in your space, But in theory, could you not say, hey, this is what we're going to, we want to track all of our, all of our numbers, all of our, people fill out, a very basic form and then list your company at a certain price that the AI program ends up valuing your company at, versus how much do you put on the relationship, and how much does this really mean to the other person, versus how much does it mean to the owner, how much of a human being is going to really be required for this type of thing. And
glad you asked that.
Maybe it's a loaded question, I don't know.
No, I'm actually glad you asked that, because you got me thinking too. Well, in regards to the real estate industry, for real estate agents, I feel like that's been a tough industry lately, that it's gotten really, really tough. They've had some law changes here in Florida that have made it very, very difficult to have like 2 agents involved at the same time. I know Zillow has made it very difficult. I know that like my wife is so good at looking at Zillow and like doing all that, where it's like the need for an agent, I'm not sure if it's there or not. I'm sure there's a niche. I don't know enough about the real estate industry, but I know there's still a lot of successful real estate agents out there. In regards to my industry, I'm glad that you asked that, because that's another reason why initially I was sort of all in on just being a business broker. But I noticed, because of my experience as a public adjuster and just feeling that lack of need for that role, like Brandon, construction, like you could easily call your insurance company and be like, hey, I'm a contractor, your estimate's bullshit, here's how much it actually costs. You know what I'm saying? You don't need.
We do that all the time, right? Homeowners call us in and they say, hey, we have this quote for this restoration. Like you use the example of the tile flooring. And we said, okay, well, before you get them to come in, know that this is what your home is going to look like afterwards if they go and replace that. And you're not going to like the look of it. So the reality is, in order to get that right, rather than having, a box ticker that's going out there to just look at a few little things, in reality, your house is not going to look the same. It's not going to look the way that...
And they're required to pay you for it to look the way it looked before the loss.
Exactly.
And then you could also use AI to upload the estimate from the insurance company, explain the damages to AI, square footage of the house, type of floor, whatever, or take Brandon's estimate and upload it and ask it to find out the differences to contact your insurance company. That's what I do now, even as a public adjuster. I'll take my estimate, I'll take the insurance company's estimate, and I take the policy and I have it read it all, and then I come up with my argument. So what I noticed with the brokering, what I like is, so the reason why I'm getting into the whole exit planning, I do feel like that's much more of like a human touch, that it's almost like business coaching, basically. I do like the AI aspect of the valuation. Like I could easily evaluate your company. All I need is your profit and loss. And if the financials are clean, very simple to come up with a valuation. So simple, AI can do it. So simple, like a machine. You could probably type in business value calculator and it could probably do it for you. That's just honestly, the valuation of your company is the smallest part of what I do. Making sure you're asking the right questions, the human touch of that conversation that Brandon and I have about the details of what you want after you exit, what you want for your future, what you want for your kids, the estate planning that you need to have, the trust that you need to set up to make sure that if somebody goes after your business, that everything is safe. Like all those nuances, making sure the relationships that I have with estate planning attorneys, with financial advisors that could help bring on my team here, that we could help you really plan. And then just the whole every 90 days, making sure that you're set up, talking with your team. In my opinion, I don't see how AI would replace that. The valuation part, yeah, but that's just like a small part. So I'm excited about AI, so I don't have to actually do the valuations anymore. I could just pump it in there and just, make sure it comes out good.
And not have anybody come back and hate you for devaluing their company for less than they're expecting it to be. And you say, hey, actually, like this is what I thought. And this is what... I've
actually got a member of Elite, Zulfia. Do you know Zulfia?
Yeah, so actually, yeah, Zulfia, and when you're referring to Elite was Dan Martell, who you were alluding to before. That was where we met was through Dan. And yeah, she's been on the podcast. We're doing a second one specifically for AI in construction, actually.
I have her creating an AI agent for me to take our conversation, our scores, or the scores that I gave you, the valuation, the profit and loss, dump it in there, and have it give the report that I want. That's just efficiency for me. That doesn't take away from the fact that I asked you the right questions. It doesn't take away from the fact that I am the one that put the whole scoring thing together to give all your scores, and making sure that based on my experience and your answers, I'm ultimately giving you the report's just a report. It's just like, hey, here's everything. I still have to be the one to sort of be the quarterback of your future here to make sure that you're doing everything. And then what I love AI is that I got a dashboard now too, where you can go look at the valuation, watch it increase, make sure that you're doing everything that you have to do. I'm all about AI. For what I do, it's much more of a human touch. I'm not worried about anything like that.
I agree. It's going to clean up a lot of the inefficiencies and probably a lot of the stuff that you don't like doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's never really going to know, who, if you're working with a business and you're brokering a business and you're looking for somebody that's going to buy the business, you kind of get to know the nuances of who the seller is, who the operations team are, who their key people are. So when you're looking for a buyer, hey, okay, well, we have their the buyer's box of what it is that they're looking for specifically in a company, but they're also going to work really well. Their mindset, their leadership style is going to integrate really well with this team. I think that this would be a good buyer for you rather than just very black and white. Like, I think that there's, I said it before, a lot of decisions are great to make that are very, very black and white, but I think a lot of magic happens in the gray. And that's kind of that nuance and that human touch that AI at this point is going to have a lot of trouble to replicate.
Yeah, and I go back real quick to this feeling I got when I started the whole business brokering journey, where I kept reading these exit planning books and they're never talking about the broker. I kept reading articles and they're never talking about the broker. And I'm like, why? I didn't understand. And what I keep learning is that, number one, when I first got into it, everybody talks bad about business brokers, like they're very irresponsible. You know why, Brandon? Is because it's a low bar to entry. So when you get industries that are low bar to entries, eventually, and this is like public adjusting, I feel, my vision is I feel like eventually the business broker will be cut out. And what I feel like the large businesses, the upwards of, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, $50 million in gross revenue, $100 million, they're not looking at business brokers. They're looking at M&A, like elite advisors. They're looking at investment bankers. They're looking at like people who are really, really, they don't look at the business brokers, which is why I really want to focus on just the whole exit strategy as good business strategy, and then using my gift, which I believe is my ability to connect with other humans and communicate with others and just building a relationship. That's what I'm ultimately good at. Using that to sort of build that relationships to the point where, all right, it's time to sell. I'll broker the deal and I get a percentage off of it.
Is it down in the States? I'll ask you a bit of a technical question here because I don't know, but down in the States, if you are a exit broker, are you looking at companies just in a specific state, or is there different regulations by state? Is it countrywide? Can you broker businesses down in Australia or across the world? If I wanted to buy a company down on the other side of the world, could I go to you, Vince Perri, and say, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about moving my family to Australia. We love it over there. I'm looking at buying a business down there and maybe integrating, down that way. Could you broker a business between somebody like me who's in Canada? You're down in the States, I'm in Canada, but I'm looking to buy a business down in Australia. Is it kind of worldwide, or is it just a requirement that, hey, you have to operate under this certain umbrella, these certain states, this certain country?
No, no. As an exit strategist, basically what I do is we could have a listing agreement where you and I make an agreement that I am going to ultimately help you sell your business. What the downside of that is I don't know anybody in Australia, so I wouldn't know any buyers in Australia, or I may not know any sellers, but being in the industry, speaking the language, I'm sure just a few phone calls away. And also with the communities that I'm a part of, potentially I could find people. But to answer your question, yeah, I could sell a business basically anywhere in the world.
There's a lot of conversation these days about entrepreneurship and about the idea of either starting a business or buying a business. And there's a lot of conversation about you're actually de-risking yourself a lot by buying a business first instead of greenfielding a business or starting a business from scratch, because you're taking out a lot of that startup risk really out of the equation. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing too. Everybody thinks about starting a company, but fewer people, I think, misunderstand or underestimate the value of buying an already established company, whether it's big or small. Maybe you're buying yourself essentially a good paying job because you're excited about it and you want to move into it, but you don't have to worry a tremendous amount about new marketing. That works really well, that'll come, but you do have some cash, you can get into it right away, you put up some money, you invest into it. How many what would you tell somebody if they were looking to start a business, knowing what you know now, and 16 plus years as an entrepreneur, you've run multiple companies? Would you tell somebody, and there's no right or wrong answer, start a company or buy a company that already has some revenue? What would you tell them?
You answer that question, Brandon. I mean,
maybe I already answered it, but
I know. I mean, I've heard you. I've heard you talk about it. I mean, you've been on the grind. You've been growing your business for quite a while, and you started from nothing, right? From
yeah, I mean,
scratch.
yeah, for sure. It was started doing this was over 15 years ago now ourselves. We're almost we're in our 16th year of business here at
It's a
New Vision
lot of.
Projects as
It's
well.
a lot. It's a
Yeah,
lot. Can you imagine
it's
if I came in and just bought your business now? How advantageous would that be for me?
yeah. I'd be like, I would fight you hand and foot for that thing. I'm like, no way. I worked so hard to get
Hard,
it to where it
exact. So
is.
yeah, so that answers the question. I mean, if you could find a really good, strong company, and obviously you want to make sure that you're looking at those four capitals, you're looking at owner dependency, you're looking at all that stuff. But even then, I will say, if a company is lacking, say, owner dependency or management structure, like you put that into your financial objective, right? Like if you know that based on the 2x or 3x multiple and based on the EBITDA, the cash flow that you're getting, you have enough cash flow to pay yourself the salary that you want, and there's still excess over to potentially hire an operator, somebody experienced. You put that ad out on Indeed, make sure you hire somebody. Hey, this is a construction company that specializes in this, and that. I need to hire a COO and salary. And then there's usually typical market salaries, averages that there are for that. If the cash flow makes sense, where you could pay yourself the salary that you want, pay off the monthly loan or whatever it is that you borrowed, and then also pay, which happens a lot, also be able to pay an operator and still have some extra cash flow, which by the way is very common, then you could solve that owner dependency part, you could solve that lack of management part, and then you could ultimately not buy a job. But, I do recommend, if someone's going to buy a business, I think some business experience is probably a good thing. I will say, I think what I've learned, and I'm sure you could agree, is a business is a business is a business. Like, you got systems, you got operations, you got marketing, you got sales, they're not all that different when you really look at it. But I would recommend, if you're going to buy a business, grass is always greener on the other side. I'm sure you would agree that if you don't have experience in this, you know that this entrepreneurial journey is, even if you're buying an existing business, it ain't easy, it's risky. But you want to make sure that when someone is making that decision, when you're making that decision to purchase a business, obviously you want the least amount of risk possible, which is why the first thing I do with a business owner is I de-risk, because if you want to sell your company for top multiple, you want a company with the least amount of risk as possible.
We've seen and I've heard the term. I've heard it come up a number of times over the last couple of years. The silver tsunami, and that's referring to what we're seeing is the largest transition of wealth
Yeah.
between family members, right? So we have boomers that are, they're shutting down businesses or they're passing away. There's leaving some legacy money. They've, built a business or whatever. But they're transferring that wealth now to other family members. But what I think we're also seeing is a lot when businesses were starting, and I'm not generalizing every single business across the board, but a lot of businesses, I would say the vast majority of them, were built at a time where there wasn't really an exit strategy involved, and maybe they're thinking, okay, well, the kids are going to take over the business. We have this manufacturing company, or we have a sign making company, or we have a landscaping company, whatever it is. And then the kids don't want to take it over, and the owners have really not paid themselves all that much. Over the years, they've been the main operator, they've been doing the sales, they've been running operations, but there's something there. There's some long-term brand, some name recognition that people have, and now all of a sudden they're looking for an option. So what if they had another 10 years in front of them and really started dialing it up and started using, integrating AI into their business? Cool. Well, then they're going to be able to probably sell that for, set maybe 7, 8 times multiple. But because they're tired, they're at their end. They want to exit for whatever they can. I think that there's a lot of opportunity right now to find those businesses. As somebody that's young, that's hungry, that wants to get into it, that wants to buy it, that is probably going to be able to find the right business for a pretty good deal, where it's a win-win for both sides.
Hence the reason why I'm switching industries. Baby boomers, but Gen X as well. So the first thing you mentioned was the selling to a family member, selling to a child or something like that. Did you know about just over 76% of business owners want to sell their business to someone in their family? Only 30% are actually successful in doing so. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, yes, now's a good time because of the baby boomer generation. However, baby boomers are the most difficult and hard-headed, I would say, when it comes to exit planning. Why? The difference between the baby boom generation, Gen X, Gen Y, the one before, whatever it is. The difference is between Gen X and the baby boomers is that the baby boomers, like, their company and their business, like, defines them. Like, it is like them. It is an extension of them. So for them to be even thinking about selling or selling to some stranger or whatever, or you're telling me it's only a 2x, I've been doing this for 50 years, this is a 10x and all that stuff, they are actually very difficult for the exit strategy part and the exit planning part, which is, again, I do both. So for the brokering, it's great because, yeah, like a lot of them are ready to sell just because they're tired. But man, they got to have some kind of strategy because 80%? I just studied all these percentages. I think it's 80% regret their decision.
After selling.
80% after a year, after they have sold, regret their decision. They get very depressed. Diseases and sicknesses start showing up and it gets really, really bad. Why? They didn't plan. That's why it's so important to have the wealth goal number. Have an idea of how much money you want to make per year. A lot of times, Brandon, they sell the company and they're no longer making that annual salary anymore. Yeah. And what they sold the business for isn't enough to cover them for the next 10 or 20 years, and they're actually taking a pay cut. So they're actually getting, because they didn't plan. They didn't talk to their financial advisor. They didn't talk to their exit strategy advisor. So they got to, again, it's like 80% of 1 year after selling, they regret it. The Gen X, the beauty about Gen X is they aren't married to their companies. Like I'm not, right? Like I'm always, like Dan's not. I agree. Everything's like, no, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna sell it one day so I can go and do something else because I get bored. So that's the beauty about the Gen X generation, which is almost the same as the baby boomer, where the baby boomer, they're all ready to sell now because they're just old, they're tired, and they're just ready to get out of it. While the Gen X generation is like, shit, if I can get a good multiple, I'm out. I'll sell it to whoever's interested. So Yes, silver tsunami for sure, man. We are in it now for sure, and there's a lot of business opportunities. A lot of. I think it's there's another. I think it's $13 trillion actually. Yeah, potentially. I think it's either 13 or 16 trillion dollars of wealth going to be transferred in the next like 10 years.
Yeah, it's a huge amount, and I think part of the reason too, just to touch up on why that you get that sickness after you mentioned that regret is all of a sudden, like, I think one of the things that really keeps you alive is purpose and community. And if you don't have that need to show up at the office, or you don't have people that are relying on you, all of a
Relying on
sudden
you.
you're like, what the heck am I doing here?
Hmm.
And that doesn't feel good. I think everybody wants to have some sort of purpose. I shouldn't say everybody. There's a lot of people that are just really happy in their retirement and doing their things and living a great life. But
If I sit with a business owner and they're just like, oh, I just want to go to the beach, or I want to play golf every day, or I have a bucket list that I want to do, like, those are not good answers. Because, okay, so you do the things on your bucket list, then what? Okay, so you're at the beach for like 3 months, 6 months, call it a year. Then what? How many rounds of golf can you play before you're just like, my hands are sore, I pulled a muscle, now I can't walk anymore? Like, there needs to
you
be like,
realize you're not getting any better at golf. Maybe you've shaved one stroke off your handicap in 3 years.
there needs to be a legitimate, like, what am I going to do? Is there going to be another business that I'm going to invest in? Am I going to do consulting? I don't know. Whatever it is, whatever answer I get, it better be a pretty decent one. And if you don't have that answer yet, like, that's okay. The whole point is like, okay, the next 90 days, let's really start thinking about it. Have those conversations with your wife. Have those conversations with your kids. Like, what is it that's something that you want to do? Because then we also plan for that as well. So, like, let's say you want to move to another country, or start another business, or whatever it is. A lot of people go into philanthropy after, right? But how much money are you going to need for that? You're going to need money for that as well. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but having a plan for after you exit, even if you're in your 20s or 30s, like, I don't think it matters. Like, having a plan for after you exit the company. It's not about retirement. If you're in your 30s and you want to sell your business by the time you're 40 because you know you're going to be bored and you want to do something else and you've got some other interests, like, let's plan for that as well, right? So a lot goes into it.
And I think people are living a lot longer these days than they were before. I've talked to a few financial analysts, and they deal with a lot of RRSPs, and I don't know what you guys would necessarily use down in the States, but a lot of the retirement plans, the mutual funds, the bonds, like, these are plans that were meant to take you from like retirement through to death.
Mm-hmm.
And if your plan was to you retire at 60 or 65 years old, and now you have enough money that's going to get you to 85, well, what happens if you live to 95?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you live to 100?
Mm-hmm.
And you're still young and healthy, but now all of a sudden your health starts deteriorating a bit. You need some extra help. That gets expensive. I've my last remaining grandparent. I mean, we just transferred him to a home because he's got some really bad dementia that's come on as of really recently. It came on very quickly. But man, if you're looking for 24/7 care, and you're dealing with his dementia, I mean, there, with taxes in and a few little add-ons, man, it's $15,000 a month pretty easily. And if you don't have that, to like, what are you going to do? And
So,
here you end up in different, like, public public hospitals and public facilities where you have, you're living the last 10 years of your life living with 4 other people in a home because you can't afford the care that you need, that you were expecting, people were lying to you about, saying, hey, this is the right way of going about things.
So we have 3 legs to the stool. This is the way we do our planning, right? We have personal, financial, and the business. And in all 3, we go through de-risking. And on the personal side, one of those things for de-risking is your estate planning, is making sure that you have disability insurance, making sure that you have all the retirement set up that you could actually make enough money. Like, that's part of it. Like, and it's not me that does it, right? This is me to tell you to do it. Now let's go contact the financial advisor to make sure that you get all these things. Because my mom doesn't have disability insurance, and guess what? We had to put her in and a memory care. Dude, $8,500 a month we're paying for that thing. Now
that's US, Canadian. It's like 15 grand.
It's fucking crazy.
A little less, but it's like, it's insane.
And I called a financial advisor. I'm like, please tell me she has disability insurance. And he goes, Vince, I'm getting chills now. I talked to her about it 25 years ago or 20 years ago. I sat down in her he's been with her for a long time. He's like, Vince, I'm telling you, I sat down in her kitchen table. We talked about it. It was just this much more money and she didn't do it. And I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
The better question you should be asking though is, don't they say like, isn't the singularity is like in 2032 or like 2035, where I think that we're going to come to a point, Brandon, where we could live forever. What happens then with AI?
Yeah. Well, I mean, then we're going to be, my business is going to be doing okay because we're going to need a lot of houses built because people are going to need to live somewhere. And the challenges that we're dealing with red tape and allowing developers to build without, over leveraging, without having them, pay a huge amount of money. I mean, we would have to figure that out, but we'd have to have somewhere, like we need people, places for them to live. Yeah. We also need people for, more and more people to take care of them.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's a whole nother conversation.
I don't know.
It's not too far away.
I don't know the process is with like getting drugs approved and getting all these different things approved, but I did read on a podcast or listen to on a podcast the other day where they're in the works of some of these things to get approved, but the problem is they take like 10 years to get approved. And I think it's like something with AI and regenerating of this and that like by 2032 or 30, once this one or two things get passed, it's going to be a litany of other things that get passed where, yeah, we have the potential to live for a really long freaking time because any disease or anything could just be like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but you know what I'm saying? It'd be pretty crazy.
You heard him here. Vince Perri, not a doctor.
That's
awesome,
for sure,
man. Hey, Vince. Where can people find you if they want to track you down, learn more about selling their business, buying a business? Where can they find you on YouTube? How do people track you down?
Vince Perri Official on Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn. Vince Perri on Facebook. VincePerri.com. And pretty easy to find. So yeah, I mean, honestly, we have a new show every single Wednesday. Where it's my solo show where I'm teaching entrepreneurship, leadership, mindset, business strategy, business exit, all that stuff. Monday, I always have a guest, which we're going to have you on pretty soon. Every Monday is my guest show. So that's on Mondays. Wednesday's my solo show. Pretty much every Friday, I go live at 11:30 where I just take you behind the scenes of what I'm doing because I did the stupid thing. And instead of purchasing an existing business, I decided to launch a new business. But I'm really, really excited about it. It's really like I'm pretty passionate about it. I really just enjoy business, and if I get to help people, I was a tennis coach for 15 years, so like the coaching and leadership and mentorship has always just been a thing, and it kind of like fits into this now. So I'm pretty excited. I'm a little stressed because launching a business is stressful, but I feel really, really good about where we're headed. So yeah, that's how to find me, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Hell yeah, man. Hey, last question. As running a tennis academy and tennis instructor, what are your thoughts on pickleball?
I think it's great. What I like is the low barrier to entry because tennis, you're just chasing the fucking ball around all the time. Like it's so difficult to keep a rally going. Not for me because I played college. I played for a long time. But I get it. Like it's very frustrating for someone going out there. That's why nobody plays tennis because the balls, they freaking fly through the air. They bounce off of those rackets like crazy. You're playing from like freaking feels like one football field to another. So it's hard to keep a rally going, whereas pickleball, man, it's just awesome. I think it's pretty cool. Now, what I love about it is that I'm already really good at it. I don't play typically. I've only played one time, dude. And I was in Dallas, Texas, visiting a buddy. He's like, hey, we're going to go play pickleball. And I was like, you remember I played tennis, right? He's like, oh. He's like, I'm going to put you on my team. I'm not going to tell anybody. You're like the ringer. And I was just like right there behind the kitchen, I think it's called, right? Just destroying everything. And they're like, wow, they all got mad. It was pretty funny. So I was naturally good at it. But yeah, I think pickleball is great because more people could play.
My guy. Awesome, man. Hey, thank you so much for spending your time here with us. And for all of you listeners that are out there that are still with us, thank you for sticking around. I appreciate all of your time. And until next time, rock and roll. We'll see you later. All right, peace.